What's good, y'all? It's your boy Jahid, aka Heedy the Scribe, and for those of y'all who don't know me, I'm a writer, I am a reader, I'm a jiu-jitsu practitioner, I'm an athlete, and I am also someone who currently hates the Sacramento Kings. And that being said, being a writer, I actually want to talk more about writing because I feel like I don't do that enough. So that being said, today's video is going to be about just 6 tips that I think can be really beneficial for wherever you're at in the writing process, whether you're just started, you're about to edit, you just finished the first draft, or maybe you're getting ready to get beta readers. I don't know, but these are just 6 things that I think are really useful tips. So that being said, let's get into it. And tip number 1, the first draft is always garbage. I cannot emphasize this enough. I like to use the metaphor of, would you drop kick a 2-year-old for not being able to run a 4x4? No, you fucking wouldn't, unless you're a psycho. Because again, that 2-year-old is a baby. And in that same vein, your book, your story, it is a baby. This first initial draft, you aren't trying to create anything coherent. You are literally just word vomiting everything onto the page. Your objective is to take everything that's up here and get it on here. That's it. No, it's not supposed to sound good. It's gonna sound fucking weird. It's a bunch of random 3 a.m. ideas and stuff you jotted down when you're supposed to be working your shift and you ran to the bathroom because you got an idea and you couldn't focus till you jotted it down. Yes, I've been there. I know what you did. You non-working bastard. Anyway, so yeah, be gentle. That first draft is you telling the story to yourself. Please remember that. If you are expecting literary perfectionism, in draft 1, you are setting yourself up for inevitable failure and disappointment. Be gentle with yourself and remember to treat draft number 1 of your book the way you would a child. Have some patience, have some compassion. And that directly leads into tip number 2, which is you are going to write a lot of versions of your story. So get comfortable with the idea of spending lots of time with these characters, with this world, with this story, and also be okay with the fact that things are gonna have to change. You are going to have to make some cuts that you don't necessarily want to make. You're gonna have to make some hard choices. That's part of the process. And at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, do you want to do what you want to do, or do you want to do what is best for the story, for your world, and the people who live in it, okay? And back to the so many versions of the book thing, I just mentioned that the first draft is basically you're telling the story to yourself, right? The second draft is you're taking the nonsensical word salad that is the first draft and you're turning that into a book. You're turning that into something with a beginning, middle, and end. And once you've done that, you've gone through, you've edited it by hand or using some editing software, and you've turned it into something that, people can read without this immediate urge to gouge out their eyes. That's when we get into the third version of your book, the third draft, I like to say. And this is where you go and enlist outside help. That can be beta readers, that can be a developmental editor, or maybe you go and you get an editorial letter. I don't know, but this is essentially where the real writing happens and you turn your story into something that makes sense, and not only makes sense, but is digestible for your readers. Again, we don't want people to read things and immediately start weeping tears of blood. We don't want that, right? You feel me? So that's what the third version is, where you're revising the shit out of what you created. You're making those hard cuts, you're moving things around, you're restructuring, you're having conversations about pacing and theme and tone, and whether or not you start thinking about acts in the beginning, the middle, the end, the climax, the resolution, all that fun stuff. And then after you've spent probably a few months or weeks, depending on how quickly you edit, going through that painstaking process of ripping your book apart and basically writing something new, but it's beautiful, trust me. Then you get into the fourth part, which is refining, right? Now that you've gone through and basically torn this book a new one, you go through, you refine it, you clean it up, you do some line-by-line editing, and this is when you can kind of obsess over words and dabble into poeticism and literaryism. I don't know if that's a word, pause. Anyway, that fourth draft is where you get to make your sentences sound pretty, and we're making sure that you're using proper grammar, proper punctuation, and again, it doesn't read like something a cracked out 8th grader wrote. That's the point. And then tip number 3, which is so important. Comparison is the death of your progress. And one thing I think that's not discussed enough, or at least for me, is this idea that I tend to compare myself to other people's success and define myself by their definitions of success when I don't have my own, or when I don't have clearly defined goals for myself. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I do jujitsu, and I'm going to use jujitsu as a perfect example. For those of you who aren't familiar with jujitsu, jujitsu is a martial art. It focuses on grappling, standing, takedowns, submissions, that kind of fun stuff. There's 5 belt ranks: white, blue, purple, brown, black, and I'm currently a white belt with a couple stripes. I've been doing this for a couple years. But anyway, that being said, it is very easy when I go to the gym for me sometimes to compare myself to my other white belts, because there's some guys who have less stripes than me and whoop my ass. Like, you know what I'm saying? They choke me out really quickly. They can take me down super fast. And sometimes I'm asking myself, like, why do these guys keep beating me? Why am I not good as them? And I have to remind myself that it's not that I'm not as good as them. It's we just have different goals. There's this one guy in my gym. He comes sometimes multiple times a day. Pause. Anyway, he comes to the gym multiple times a day, 5 to 6 days a week, and he trains really hard all the time because he wants to compete in tournaments and at a high level. I don't necessarily want that. So we have different goals. So I can't measure my success by how rapidly and how quickly he seems to be progressing, because we want different things. Does that make sense? And when I realized my goal is to just improve at my own rate and my own pace, I'm not constantly worried about what he's doing and how he's progressing, and damn, he knows this move and he's doing these sweeps and I don't know how to do them. It's not about him. It's about, am I better than I was a year ago? And I start thinking of it like that. Like, if I had a match with me from this time last year, I would whoop his ass. And that's growth. And it's the same thing with your writing. It is so easy to pick up any one of these books or a book by your favorite author and just read the prose and then look at something you wrote and be like, my stuff will never be as good as that. That is so easy, and it is so destructive, and it is so detrimental. You have to remember, one, we have no idea how many rounds of editing a traditionally published or a self-published book has gone through to get it to the point where it is now. We have no idea who these authors have in their corner. We have no idea what their life has looked like to get them to this point. And also, please remember, I won't say a lot of writers, but I know a handful of writers who have that super poetic style. And some of these people, they just obsess over sentences and they pick them apart until things sound nice, they flow, it's beautiful, they love it, and it just sounds really sonically pleasing. And of course, it's really easy to read this incredibly lyrical paragraph and be like, oh my God, I'm never gonna be able to write something that majestic, that moving, when you don't know that the author spent like a good 5 hours making it sound that nice. I would know. I'm one of those people. I obsess over how things sound. Or maybe an author doesn't obsess over the way things sound. Maybe they were a poet. Maybe they dabbled in spoken word. Maybe that they were in a writing group, and making things sound nice just comes naturally to them. Maybe they read a lot of poetry. You just don't know. And the point, you aren't supposed to know. It isn't your job to like dissect and pick apart why another author is able to write so brilliantly and so beautifully. That's not the point. The point is to read the book, appreciate the art, be moved from it, inspired from it, learn from it, and go create your own thing. If you keep writing and you keep reading, at some point you will find your own style and your own voice. And when that happens, you will be so comfortable with who you are as an author on the page, you're not going to try to be like anyone else or emulate anyone else. You will learn from them, be inspired from them, and that will be all. It won't be a competition. It's never a competition. The only person you are competing with is who you were at the start of this journey. Every time you look at another author and you feel that itch of comparison or imposter syndrome or inferiority coming up, think about what the version of you who started this journey would say if they could see you right now. Because I promise they're proud of you. Keep that in mind. All right. Number 4, balance creation with consumption. This is really important, and when I first started my writing journey, I didn't do this at all. So when I say balance creation with consumption, I mean give yourself the space to be a person outside of the page. Because for me, when I first started my writing journey, I'm 22 now, I was 14, I was writing for years before that, but 14 when I first started writing my first book, all I did was write. I would be at my laptop for literally hours a day, and I wouldn't do anything else, and I was super impressionable at that age. So I was always afraid to read books or watch anything because I was scared that I would get inspired and I would try to mimic the thing that inspired me on the page, and my story would be in like this ever constant state of shifting and changing based on the current thing that inspired me. But as I've gotten older, I have found that consuming things that inspire me or that I just enjoy has paved the way through some of my greatest mental blockages. Like, you never know. Like, I remember a few weeks ago, I was watching The Sandman on Netflix, and watching one episode for some reason sparked some creative circuit in my brain, and then I got like a download and I knew how to finish a conversation between two characters that I've been stuck on for a few days. So with stuff like that, when you consume things that you just enjoy, you will sometimes get what you didn't even know you needed from simply giving yourself the space to appreciate art. And what that looks like is just dependent on you. For me, I love anime. Anime has always been one of my biggest sources of inspiration. Sometimes I can watch an episode of Naruto and it's like, oh, okay, I was really stuck on this scene, but just something in what I just watched inspired me. Now I got it, right? Or I'll go to jujitsu. Jujitsu is always like physical meditation for me. It clears my head and lets me think. I like to cook, and I'll go for a walk in nature. It's all these things I do that really allow me to fill my soul. And when my soul feels full and I feel like I'm in a space where I am allowed to exist outside of whatever project I'm working on and just enjoy life without constantly feeling the need to be behind here for 10 hours a day, I get some of the most beautiful and profound insight that I have ever had. So if that's reading books, if that's listening to music, if that's going for a run or a walk or a swim or a bike ride or playing tennis, do something that fuels you creatively, and not with the intention to get inspired. Do the thing for the sake of doing the thing and because you enjoy it. Let that be your motivation, okay? All right, so next, number 5, we have consistency over intensity. This is very self-explanatory. A great writer is one that is consistent over an extended period of time. The consistent writer will always beat the talented writer. And consistency is going to be applicable to you in your life. Only you know what consistency means. There is no right or wrong way to be consistent as long as it's a modality that you can adhere to. Plus, there's just so many ways to write a book. You can be a hours per day kind of person, scenes per day, words per day, pages per day, chapters per day. Like, there's just all these ways to do it, and you just have to find the method that you're going to be able to stick to for the long term. If you if you can write an hour a day, every day, 6 days a week, that's beautiful. And that is what works for your schedule. Do that. It's not a competition. So what? Who cares if X, Y, and Z over here can write for 5 hours a day, 5 days a week? We don't care. His journey is different. Your journey is your journey. The only person, again, you're competing with is who you were in the past. That's it. So as long as you find a method, because you need to have something, right? Something you can commit to that is realistic for your goals, your lifestyle. If you have a family, if you have a full-time job, whatever that may be, or if you're a full-time student, choose something that works for where you're at in your life right now, and be flexible and allow that system to change as you and your life changes, okay? And the last point, which I think is very important, is writer's block does not always mean you're stuck. Sometimes it means you aren't listening. Here's what I mean. I am a conduit-based writer. And what that means is I am someone who has to be very in tune with my characters in order to be able to write. And what I mean by that is I listen to my characters. I listen to them. I get to know them really well. And when I sit down at the page to write, I have my laptop right here because it looks badass, but I typically write by hand and edit on the computer. But yeah, when I sit down at the page and I'm ready to write, I lean into my characters, I lean into their voice, and I sit with them and I listen so they can speak through me and I know what words to put on the page. And I know that might sound like super woo-woo, but trust me, it has worked miracles for me, because the truth of the matter is we are visitors into this world, right? These characters are giving us permission to tell their stories. And when we let them know that we are going to give them the space to feel seen and heard, they will speak to us and they will speak through us, right? Granted, they're still characters. They have their own motivations and their own agendas. And motherfuckers lie. And your characters are people. Your characters will lie to you. They will lead you astray. They'll tell you shit that's not true. But the point is, once you've opened that door of communication and they feel safe enough to talk to you, then motherfuckers are going to speak up. That's what's going to happen. And I'm going to give you a perfect example of it wasn't writer's block, but I wasn't listening. So my current work in progress, A Poor Man's Prose, the main character, his name is Calder. He is an adaptation of me. A lot of the story follows my life when I was younger, with some magical elements thrown in there. Calder, like I said, Calder is like 70-80% based on me, and I found myself oftentimes getting stuck in what I thought was writer's block, when in reality all I was doing is I was trying to have Calder react the way I would react, when in reality he's based on me, he's not me. You see what I'm saying? So it's not that I was stuck, it's that I wasn't listening to him to know how he'd react. Literally last week, I was writing a scene. There comes a point in the book where there's this major plot reveal. We find out our main character has been lied to, and I struggled to write Calder's reaction because I kept wanting him to react the way I would react. And if I found out that somebody was lying to me the way Calder was lying to, the first thing I would do is I would be in this motherfucker's face. I'd be ready to start some shit. And I was trying to write Calder that way, and the words weren't coming. I was trying to force it. And whenever I'm trying to force something, to me, that's a sign that I need to take a step back because I'm not doing something right. So instead, I went to the park, I walked, I sat, and it took a couple days, and I just listened, and I realized that in that situation, Calder would call his best friend AD, because AD is related to this big plot reveal. He would call him. That is what Calder would do. That is who Calder is. His first instinct would be to call his best friend. And once I heard that and I realized that and I sat down to write the scene, I wrote that shit in like an hour. So that's just a reminder, whenever you're getting stuck, sometimes that's a sign that you're trying to impose your will on the story and do something that is going against what your characters may want. You might need to take a step back and you need to meet them halfway. So that's definitely something I can talk about more, of listening to your characters to know. Goofy ass boy. Anyway, that's something I can talk about more, of listening to your characters and kind of using them. I don't even know what I'm saying right now, but anyway, yeah, that's something I can definitely talk about more, just learning to listen to your characters to avoid writer's block. So yeah, that's it. I hope these tips were helpful. I'm definitely planning on making a part 2 to this and doing some more videos like this, so stay tuned. And yeah, that's all. Y'all have a good one. Hopefully we can get a fucking dub this week, bro. I swear. Jesus.